So Joe Biden, Dark Brandon, our savior, he has committed to killing God. He is a Final Fantasy protagonist. Now, there are people who do not like this plan of Dark Brandon's, notably Jordan B. Peterson, known believer in God, who responded to Biden's speech by posting a stupid unrelated video a day earlier. Africa is not poor because of colonization. Great stuff there. Thank God it's only 11 minutes and 4 seconds, so we only have to listen to it for 11 minutes and 4 seconds. I have not seen the video, so it's possible that literally everything in here is completely correct. I mean, it's possible. I'm also not a tremendous expert on African colonization, so this is something of a weak subject for me. You know, it's possible they might be able to slip a few past me, but I'll try. I'll try to think sharp. You know, I'll try to remember my training.
Well, you list here in one of your articles where you make reference to these ratings.
Oh my fucking God. It's a Jordan Peterson dating sim. Look at it. It just opens here. He's sitting opposite of you. He was looking right at you.
Systems, the bottom 10 countries for doing business in the world: Chad, Haiti, Central African Republic, Congo, Democratic Republic, South Sudan, Libya, Yemen, Venezuela. There's a lovely example: Eritrea and Somalia. And so there are three exceptions in the African ecosystem. Mauritius, Rwanda, Kenya, South Africa, Botswana, and Zambia. You pointed out in your prospectus, is it prospectus article?
Yeah, prospectus article of
right.
Is she in the same place as him? Like, is there like a back wall for lighting, or is this
right
institute?
Right, that Mauritius is a rising.
This is weird. The camera, the way things are framed makes it seem like she's sitting where we're sitting, but for some reason there's like a giant wall behind her. I don't know. There's something about the framing of this. Yeah, I guess Jordan Peterson had a moral objection to being in the same room as a black person.
Star. And Rwanda is in some ways comparable to Georgia. So some of these countries have started to get this right.
There we go. This is fine.
And so what's the consequence of that? And what does right mean?
What they have understood, what these countries have understood, is that economic freedom is at the center for prosperity building.
Okay. Great start. Economic freedom in Africa has had a couple of definitions. What is the name of this lady? Magate Wade? Probably mispronounced that, but what matters is my earnest effort to do my best. Magate Wade, entrepreneur, nice. Senegalese. Wikipedia article. Do we have a Wikipedia article? Oh, done a TED talk. Okay, so you know some clout here. Wikipedia. I see a Wikipedia, but it's not in English. It's in French. His eldest of 4 children, emigrated to Europe to seek work, raised in part by grandmother, completed her studies in France, chose to live in the United States, created her first company in 2004, manufactures and markets African drinks, the American market. Cool. Launched his second company, a cosmetics company. Cool. All right. Neat. What does her website say? Fancy. I am a cheetah entrepreneur, okay, who believes the free markets and economic freedom is the pathway for Africa to leapfrog ahead. Okay. So this seems to me like somebody who's had business success and is leveraging it into being sort of a neoliberal advocate for market development in Africa. Yeah, we'll take a look at her TED Talk too. You know, it's not too long of an initial video. We can learn. My ideas are grounded in reality and my lived experience. Okay. The topic areas I'm passionate to speak about are the role of free markets in overcoming poverty and the role of enterprise to tackle social issues and entrepreneurial education. Okay. I want to point out right off the bat that while historically speaking, efforts at developing markets in Africa have not been the most ethical project. I will say that there are elements of truth to this, in the sense that uh, of the pathways forward for African countries, development of the business sector is an inevitable and unavoidable part of them. Usually the issue is, in order for a country to grow in the modern world, it needs to develop its market sector. But there are exploitative and non-exploitative ways in which that's done. There are countries that will go full protectionist and will try to develop those markets internally and make sure that trade deals happen on their own terms. And there are countries that get absolutely bent over the rail by Western corporations.
Rwanda, for example, Paul Kagame, the president of Rwanda, is explicit about it. He said he wants to be the Lee Kuan Yew he wants to be the Singapore of Africa, and Lee Kuan Yew is his model. Now, the dirty mouths are going to start shouting, oh, yeah, see, authoritarian, blah, 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 whatever. Me, I want to talk only about the on the economic side.
That's kind of odd. So Singapore is an authoritarian city-state. That's kind of an odd thing to address and cut off right at the beginning there. Other people want to talk about, the whole like civil rights, democracy thing, but I just want to talk about the business. You always be suspicious of these people, okay? Half of the neo-colonialism that the West has done has been people with this attitude, where it's like, oh yeah, sure, maybe we put a fascist in power, but at least they're amicable to American business markets, Just saying.
If you take Lee Kuan Yew and Singapore as your example, then it means that, like him, you're going to have to be serious about economic freedom. And that's exactly what he did. That's what Singapore did. When Singapore figured that out, they went on to put in the right reforms to make their environment some of the most business-friendly environments in the world, one of the most free markets environment in the world. And you saw the magic of Singapore. Today, Singapore is richer than its ex-colonizer, Great Britain. So,
okay, a couple of things to qualify here. So, first of all, economic freedom can mean a variety of things. It doesn't always translate into freedom for individual citizens in a country. Oftentimes it refers to business amicability and ease of investment, stuff like that. It's a pretty complicated marker. Now, Singapore's economic freedom is massive. I think it might actually be the highest in the world. As for their, GDP per capita, I believe it's quite high as well. Yeah, nearly 60,000 USD. It's a pretty wealthy country. If I recall correctly, though, there are prices to this sort of thing. It's like how the here we go. Income and wealth inequality in Singapore. Sorry, I know this sounds a bit like nitpicky, but it's important to address it right off the bat. In Singapore Trends and Statistics 2022. There are 250,000 millionaires in Singapore, but 800,000 adults have less than 13,500 in wealth. Well, the average wealth per adult in Singapore is 449,543. It's not a true representation of the wealth majority of the population. The median wealth per adult, for a better measure, is about 117,000. The report also stated there are 269,000 millionaires, of which 60 have more than $1 billion in wealth. That is a lot of millionaires and billionaires for a city-state. I think a lot of Singapore's value and wealth is kind of like in a Dubai sense, where it's a playground for the ultra-wealthy, and there is like an underclass beneath it, but a lot of their wealth is predicated on them being useful to foreign investors. But it's not so much like an independent, it's not so much an independent bastion of productive capacity, so much as it is like a trade beacon in their part of the world. Singapore is not like Dubai. No, I'm not saying that Singapore is like Dubai holistically. Dubai is much worse broadly. I'm only saying that like Dubai is considered like a playground for the rich in most respects and isn't a real city in the way that like one might consider that. And Singapore, I think most of its wealth. Well, actually, we can just look it up here. Singapore economy. I think it's important to learn stuff like this. Economy of Singapore. Highly developed free market economy, one of the most open in the world, most pro-business, low tax rates, second highest per capita GDP in terms of purchasing power parity. Along the business-friendly representation for global and local privately held companies and public companies, state-owned enterprises play a large role. Okay, so what is the actual economy? Singapore relies on an extended concept of intermediary trade to intraport trade by purchasing raw goods and refining them for re-export in order to sustain its high level of export-oriented industrialization, such as in the wafer fabrication industry. They mean for computer parts, not for food. And in oil refining. Strategic port, the GDP ratio. The port of Singapore is the second busiest in the world by cargo tonnage and is the busiest transship port in the world. I do a lot of fancy stuff here. Their GINI percent or Guinea percent is pretty high. What are you referring to with that? I've seen that that acronym used before, but I don't remember what it means. What am I looking at? Oh, the inequality coefficient? Gotcha. Wait, did I just close the wrong window? I totally did. We're learning today. Singapore is one of the world's wealthiest countries per capita, but its GINI, or Gini, coefficient is high in comparison to developed countries. Statistics on income inequality are published by the Singapore Department of Statistics. Without taking taxes and social transfers into account, they were put into the medium range. The country remains on the very high category on the Inequality Adjusted Human Development Index. October 2018, Oxfam ranked Singapore 149 out of 157 in its commitment to reducing inequality index. Man, that is low. Wow. Labor rights. Oh, okay. Sorry, getting a bit of a tangent there.
So when I hear people telling me today, oh, Africa is poor because of colonization, I'm like, please, let's move on from that. Does it have maybe a tiny percentage in where we are today? Maybe, and I don't know. But
I might have something to do with it. There might be a slight relationship there. Oh yeah, she does say she doesn't know. You know, maybe it's just not her area of expertise. This is really common. This is really common with these like survivor's guilt, like you know, came from a bad situation but made it and got a business and stuff. You know, like it's they don't want to be seen as the victims, so they want to frame wealth and economic development as like you know, like a meritocratic, if you do the right thing you'll come out on top kind of deal. They don't they don't want to be the they don't want to feel like they're contributing to this like, you know, well actually it's this whole set of problems that aren't directly tied to input, and there are a bunch of biases because they feel it detracts from the started from the bottom now we hear narrative that they're kind of built on.
But I know it's not the cause, because if it were, many countless countries have been colonized before. And by the way, colonizing one another is humanity's history. It just happened that maybe Africa has been one of the last, you know, colonized region in the world. So in our psyche, it is there, and it acts like nothing happened before to others. But flash news, it's the history of the world. We've been capturing each other back and forth, all of that. So anyway, but the truth is...
Wait, what? yeah, we were the continent most recently broadly colonized, but other colonizations have happened too. Okay, so I see what's happening here. So she's thinking of colonization and the effects that it has on a country's wealth and development as an excuse rather than an explanation. So she's like, yeah, okay, Africa was colonized most recently or whatever, but like that's happened to everyone, you know, as though it's like she's trying to wave away like a potential excuse, you know, like that she doesn't want to have to hear, rather than it being an explanation. Well, okay, so if you acknowledge that this happens all over the place, like why would that change the effects colonization in Africa would have had on wealth and development? Doesn't really make sense. Like it's like saying like somebody gets murdered and you're like, oh well, that's bad. And you're like, okay, well, murder happens everywhere. Yeah, it's true.
Singapore, richer than Great Britain today. And then Hong Kong happened. And then because Hong Kong happened, China.
So not richer, by the way. Right, it's higher GDP per capita, but that can be skewed in a couple of ways.
Even today happened because China's like, wait a minute, what went on over there? And then China went on to do the exact same thing with its SEZs, the special economic zones, some of the most free market zones in the world. And then look at it happen in communist China, who, when it comes to economics, decided that we're going to do the free market, we're going to be capitalist, because that's the only way. We tried everything else. We killed hundreds of millions of people, and we have nothing to show for it.
Hundreds of millions, okay.
But now that we're tired of being disrespected members of society, because guess what? That's the other thing too. You want to be respected in this world, you're going to have to be among the prosperous ones.
Yeah, see, so I think this frames like the psychology of this argument, like first and foremost. We all know this archetype of a person, right? They don't just exist in real life. This is like a media archetype too, which is person who's gone through a lot, who's succeeded anyway, who has it's a kill or die world out there, you know, attitude, who's quite callous towards the suffering associated with the efforts you have to make to succeed. This is an archetype so well known that it's a trope in like anime. It's not, yeah. That being said, obviously it's true that the development of the market sector in China has enriched the country substantially, Dengism, et cetera, et cetera. Keep in mind, this is not a one-way road, you know. Attempts at free marketification imposed by the IMF and World Bank have led to devastating economic consequences for countries in Southeast Asia, in Africa, in the Middle East, and in Central and Latin America. Because usually the context in which these countries open themselves up to markets is to open themselves up to foreign markets. Singapore is unique in that Singapore, alongside some other Southeast Asian countries, adopted a protectionist strategy to develop their own internal industries. Remember when we were reading earlier about how they have like refine oil and computer parts there and stuff like that? The reason there are countries that were poor 50 years ago and now are able to do that is because they developed their internal industries until they had commodities and services that could compete with the West, at least in some small way. And that means they had something that other people were willing to seek them out for, as opposed to them just being production bitches for the West. You understand? So here's a good example of protectionist economic development being done in such a fashion, all right? Let's say you have a country that's pretty poor, they're not doing so hot, and they want to start industrializing, okay? Now, if you're going to industrialize, you need cars. Just modern world's built on cars. Sorry, guys. I don't want it to be, but that's how it is. So how are they going to get cars? Well, they need the cars because the way the cities are laid out requires people to have autonomous transportation. But, what are they going to do? Just produce their own cars? No, right? They're going to buy cars from other countries. They're going to buy cars from Germany or Japan or from America. The problem is that wealth leaves your country when you do this. If you open your markets up to Western car manufacturing, what's going to happen is people are going to buy the superior cars from outside your country, car companies in your country will have no chance. There is no way some startup car company in your third world nation is going to be able to compete with like Toyota. There's no way. So people in your country, they buy foreign cars, you know? Foreign car manufacturers make deals with local car dealerships to have, like, you know, fancy, shiny Toyotas and Volkswagens there in your country. And where is all this wealth from your country going? Out. It's going out of your country. It's leaving your country. That wealth is going to Toyota's workers, the people who refine their resources, develop their products, their managers, their CEO, you know. Unless you implement tariffs, shut down your economy, block trade, and you force people to buy your shitty domestic cars. And hey, don't get me wrong, people don't like this, especially at first, because these local cars, they're shitty, they suck, but money stays in the country. And because money stays in the country, you know, now the people who are making these cars, those jobs are in your shitty third world country. And you're buying Toyotas, you're paying the wages of people who are working over there. You buy the shitty cars that your companies make, those workers are employed in your country. The wealth cycles. And eventually, God willing, you do this enough, you have enough wealth and enough development that the cars you produce turn out to not actually be so bad. Maybe there are local resources that your country has a lot of that you can not only just mine to sell wholesale to the West, but refine and develop. And then using those refined goods, you can sell them at a much higher premium than you ever could have, just being, you know, like just a resource bitch for the West, or letting Western companies come in and mine your resources and pay you a fraction of what they're worth after their refinement. That's the goal of protectionism. The goal of protectionism is to wall off your country's economy for long enough for them to develop to the point that they can serve a role internationally outside of just being exploited by the West. Singapore did this with great effect. Japan did this to a large extent. South Korea did this to a large extent. China's done this to some extent, but China's always been very open. Well, not always, but it's been fairly open to foreign markets since Deng. Why am I forgetting the four tigers of Southeast Asia? Southeast Asia, four tigers. Why am I forgetting this? The four Asian tigers. Taiwan, and Hong Kong. Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, South Korea. Sorry, I'm sleepy today. Yeah, all these countries, the four Asian tigers, they to some extent or another, they did adopt protectionist policies in order to accelerate their domestic growth. Between the early 60s and 90s, they underwent rapid industrialization and maintained exceptionally high growth rates for more than 7% a year. These economies have developed into high-income economies, specializing in areas of competitive advantage. See, a competitive advantage means that they're trying to bank their economy on doing something specific that they can do better than any other country in the world. You know, maybe they can't outproduce America in all respects, but they can do one thing people need. Think of Taiwan and its microchip development, right? Taiwan is literally like 80% of microchips are made at Taiwan. They're like the world relies on them now for that. Yeah, no, it's important. Yeah, anyway, sorry. Yeah, I'm getting a little sidetracked.
Other reasons. Would it be nice, G, that we respect people just because? Absolutely. But that's really not the world we live in. So when China got tired of being disrespected, they're like, maybe we got to.
Isn't this super bad socially because it means those countries aren't as interconnected, though? Trust me, them going economically protectionist and developing is far better than them remaining poor and subservient to American investment forever.
Build also some prosperity here, because then they're going to hear us. And today, China, being one of the, being where it is at, even Hollywood, who tries to tell the world how to think, is being told by China what movies to make and how to tweak stories and history in order to be palatable for them.
She's not wrong here, but man, the language of that framing, perfect for conservative culture war bullshit. I can see who she plays her audience to.
You see the power that comes with with being prosperous.
So yes, wealthy countries and countries with a very large population are going to have a disproportionate impact on world culture. That's true.
The Consumer Price Index has reached yet another 40-year high, and the latest GDP numbers confirm that the United States...
Wait, do they just have an ad for buying gold in the middle of the... Wait, just no just the middle of the video. Yeah, buy gold and silver and bury it in your front yard. Okay. That is fantastic.
States is in a recession. Now is not the time to have a turbulent economy. By diversifying at least some of your investment portfolio into Gold will send you a free information kit on how to transition an IRA or eligible 401k into an IRA in precious metals.
Oh my God, guys, please do not shift your IRAs and your 401ks into precious metals. Please, God, I'm begging anyone watching this, do not shift don't put your retirement into gold.
Birch Gold will even help you hold against inflation. And thousands of satisfied customers. 9898. Claim your free.
What would you recommend concretely to countries like Senegal to get the hell out of the way, let's say, of the people who would, like you, would do everything they could to try to make it better? I mean, one of the things that happened with India is India established the Indian Institute of Technology, which is a deadly engineering school, and a huge number of its graduates went to Silicon Valley, as you well know. And many of the successful Indian graduates of IIT started to dump money back into India and build a capitalist infrastructure there, or help build a capitalist infrastructure.
So what he's referring to right here is remittances, which are a pretty common feature of immigration. However, the visa programs for which these guys come over to Silicon Valley don't always entail like proper long-term immigration status, which means that obviously they would bring money back to India. They're not staying in America permanently. Like, of course, they're only here for employment. Like, yeah, when they're done being employed, they go back to India and they have the money for the job. So, yeah.
Structure there. So this sort of thing can really take hold. If you were making recommendations to governments who wanted to get on board and stop being like Chad, Haiti, Central African Republic, Congo, South Sudan, Libya, Yemen, and Venezuela, etc., what concrete steps should they take from the bottom up to get the hell out of the way?
Exactly. So
right off the bat, the framing here is going to be bad, because the idea that there's just like, here's 10 easy tips to fix the economies of 10 like desperately poor third world African nations, you know, we're obviously not going to be getting like real actionable advice here. I don't know enough about the economies of these countries to like correct the arguments that she's about to make. Like in a specific sense, maybe there are some broad trends that I can try to poke at.
Two things we've been doing, because I'm a practitioner, as that's my entrepreneurial journey. I'm an entrepreneur, so I practice what I preach. But I also...
Well, no. Starting businesses in America, which is what she said she did, is not the same as preaching economic reform in African countries. Those are not even remote. Like, oh my God. What? That's like saying because you're a cobbler you can like run a marathon or something. That's like saying because you're a landscaper that you're qualified to run the United States like Department of the Interior, or like the Department of Agriculture or something. Or like because you grew a peanut plant once that you should like dictate agricultural law. Like no.
Also I preach for free markets, and so when it comes to that...
Oh, one other thing, by the way. I do think it's interesting that she's preaching for free markets, but protectionism, which was the driving force behind a lot of Singapore's growth, is not a free market policy at all. It's actually the opposite. Protectionism is about shutting down your markets to protect local industry and prevent your industry, your population, your jobs, your wealth from being gobbled up by other much more developed countries. So yeah, the free market thing that Singapore is doing now is what they're doing after they've developed their industries. But the immediate effects of Singapore's path, if taken by another country, would mean closing themselves to the free market. Because the thing is, guys, I got to tell you, African countries, generally speaking, are pretty open to foreign investment because that's all they have. I'm painting with a broad brush here, you know. Nigeria, Chad and South Africa have wildly different economies with wild different like levels of wealth and stuff. But like there are a lot of natural resources in Africa that we've been exploiting for a very long time. And you know, after the great like end of like the age of colonization, you know, there aren't really well developed industries in a lot of these countries. So, you know, you also tend not to have very many democracies. So they leverage those natural resources for Western companies or China with the Belt and Road Initiative to come in, develop some infrastructure, and also, you know, get the oil or diamonds or whatever for pennies on the dollar, which is technically a free market policy. It's just
I'm one of the hats that I wear is as the director for the African Center for Prosperity of the Atlas Network, the largest organization in the world of free market think tanks around the world. And so what we do there is we work on reforms around the world to take down barriers of entry for local entrepreneurs. So that's one thing. But as we all know, that's a great initiative to take.
so the development of local entrepreneurs would be a good thing from a protectionist mindset. You want local entrepreneurship as opposed to foreign entrepreneurship because the local entrepreneurship can develop into industries that can distinguish your nation and provide competitive advantage when the time comes.
And we've been making some really good advances in many countries, especially in Ghana. We've been making a lot of progress with our partners there, Imani. But that is piecemeal legislation. It takes forever. It is hard as heck. And by the time you made a gain here, you made 20 losses over there, and it's a continuous problem. But until we get better.
I do like how the title of this video is Africa is not poor because of colonization, because Jordan Peterson and his audience are racist, so they want like the Western civilization to be absolved of the centuries of rape and pillaging of Africa, even though the video is about free market reforms, and there was one line that she ended with, "I don't know," where she addressed colonization, but that's the title they went with. I think it's very funny.
We got to continue at it. So that's one thing we've been doing. And so that's a hat I wear, working with free market think tanks to try to make it easier for local entrepreneurs to join in the party. Additionally, I'm going bold. I'm going radical. For the past few years, we've been advocating an idea for Africa that found some of its roots in Latin America. And again, I'm related to the people who are involved in this. My husband being one of the key figures in this movement, a movement called the Charter Cities. Paul Romer calls it like that. He's a Nobel laureate in economics.
Okay, here we go. So this is the Atlas Network's Center for African Prosperity. Let's do a sussy review. How sussy does it feel? Let's find out. Focus on the role free markets, property rights, the rule of law have in creating the conditions for people to thrive. All right. Oh, there she is. She's the director. A few years ago, my TED Talk began to raise awareness of how Africa's relative poverty is rooted in bad policies that make it costly, risky, and frustrating to create a business on the continent. Great. Let's see what the site says. The Center for African Prosperity is dedicated to restoring the economic and personal liberties of all Africans. While the colonial era mostly ended 40 years ago, that is so recently! 40 years ago is the 1980s. And mostly ended. Jesus. Much of Africa lives with a colonial mindset, still operating with European-style bureaucracies that deny the dignity of individual Africans. Our center champions a new direction, a prosperous future of trade, enterprise, and equality under the law through educational programs, policy research, and advocacy. In early 2018, the South African government began to pursue a constitutional change that would enable a serious violation of citizens' property rights. Oh, this is referring to the reclamation of the white farmer land, isn't it? The proposed amendment would allow expropriation without compensation. The taking of a person's lawful property without proper payment. Atlas Network partner Free Market Foundation worked to protect South Africans' property rights by educating both policymakers and the public on the harmful impacts this amendment would have. How is the center funded? The center is not endowed and it does not accept funding from every government. It relies entirely on the generosity of individuals. Which individuals, Atlas Network? Who's funding you? Whatever. From the emotes I've seen in chat, you guys probably get the general attitude I have, the vibe that I'm getting from this. Apparently, Atlas Network's known for opposing climate change legislation around the world. Ah, free market. Free market development at work. I don't know why I don't just go to the Wikipedia page first. I'm so stupid. Atlas Network is a non-governmental organization based in the United States that provides training, networking, and granting for libertarian and free market groups around the world. Partners with about 500 orgs in nearly 100 countries. Financials. As of 2005, they received $500,000 from ExxonMobil and also received nearly $1 million from tobacco company Philip Morris. Of Atlas Network partners, 57% in the U.S. had received funding from the tobacco industry, received funding from the Koch family foundations. I thought it would be a joke. Yep, of course. That's Mr. ExxonMobil. John Templeton Foundation, Lilly Endowment. John Templeton Foundation is a philanthropic organization. All right. Lilly Endowment. Yes, the name is a reference to Atlas Shrugged, almost certainly. No, they deny that? Okay, well, they can deny it all they want. Organized neoliberal organizations. The organization has been described as a self-replicating think tank that creates think tanks. It is not named after Ayn Rand's novel Atlas Shrugged. What kind of wiki article has a separate paragraph to specifically say what it's not named after? I guess that link would be so obvious in everyone's mind, as it is in mine, that they feel the need to specifically deny it. But, like, why would the Wikipedia editors include that? Okay, whatever. Criticized for its links to the tobacco industry. The Atlas Network has also been criticized for its links to right-wing movements, including the administration of Donald Trump, Brexit, and anti-government protests in Latin America. Atlas Network affiliates in the UK were some of Brexit's key backers. The 2022 investigation by the Narwhal, Floodlight News, and The Guardian found Atlas Network had lobbied the Canadian government to limit how much Indigenous communities can push back on energy development on their own land, while promoting the view that Indigenous prosperity is virtually impossible without oil and gas. Ah, so now we know why the representative of the Atlas Org's Africa Development Group doesn't believe it's because colonization, because they're pro-colonization. Yeah, this is just another think tank that's disguising like neoliberal free market anti-government reforms as a kind of like, you know, take your own journey, develop your own path, free yourself, entrepreneurship. How can you claim to be in favor of local entrepreneurial development and then go ahead and like try to limit the extent to which the indigenous community can push back on development on their own land? Clearly, individual autonomy and freedom are not priorities here. Holy shit, look what they do. This is insane. Mission Johnny Appleseed of anti-regulation groups. What is this? With a modest $4 million budget in 2003 and a staff of 8, Atlas Economic Research Foundation is on a mission to populate the world with new free market voices. In its 2003 review of activities, quaintly titled its Investor Report, Atlas announced it worked with 70 new think tank entrepreneurs from 37 foreign countries. And by the way, guys, when people talk about the deep state, this is the closest thing you're going to get to the actual deep state. The closest thing you're going to get to pure evil on Earth isn't like a fucking elected government official. It's this massive, congealed, infinite, like, disease network of think tanks upon think tanks upon think tanks, who staffed and operated by people whose names you'll never know, funded by money you'll never be able to count, who have the ear of elected officials and dictators all over the world. Yeah, like, yeah, no regulation, no accountability, just this diseased sprawl of business interests around the world. The moss. It's the moss. It's the fucking moss. The mission of Atlas is to litter the world with free market think tanks. Named after the Greek god condemned to bear the heaven on his shoulders. Well, wait, you can't say that it's not named after Atlas Shrugged, when Atlas Shrugged was named after the same Greek god Atlas, who was condemned to bear the heavens on his shoulders. You can't, oh, it's not named after Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. It's just a reference to the thing that she was referenced, just the direct thing. Okay. Businessman. Ugh. Atlas Network is an associate member of the State Policy Network, a web of right-wing think tanks in every state across the country. Deep ties the Koch brothers. Okay, whatever. We're going down a rabbit hole again. God damn it. No, no. This keeps happening.
Others call it the free cities. I like to call it the startup cities. So the best way to think about it, Jordan, and it goes back to what you were talking about earlier when you use the word operation.
So we can all progress now, in spite of the fact that this is a woman who I know you all automatically are deferential to. We now understand this woman is just one appendage of an evil, like eldritch being that sprawls around the world. We know that, right? Yeah.
Operating software. Most of the poor, most of the low-income nations, so meaning back in the days, the way we used to call it is poor nations, they have regulations for poverty. They're basically regulated for poverty, meaning the laws, the set of law, poverty. It only calls poverty.
What? I don't even know what she's saying there.
And so what some of these folks have thought about, looking at the Dubai example, Dubai just recently entered the top 10 of international financial centers of the world.
Oh, you really don't want to be using Dubai as a positive example of economic development. Oh my God. I didn't think we'd go that bad. Dubai is built on literal slave labor. They literally brought in slaves by the thousands to build Dubai, and it exists as a playground, as an amusement park for the ultra-wealthy to shit into gold toilets. They have poop trucks. They were so, it's not a city for humans to live in. They don't even have a sewer system. Dubai poop trucks. They don't have a sewer system. All these buildings have tanks underneath and outflow vents. And there's a literal traffic. I'm not joking. It's traffic in Dubai. Honey, why are you late to the child raping festival that us billionaires were putting together? Oh, sorry, I got stuck behind the 3-mile-long poop truck jam. This is real. These are poop trucks.
And what Dubai did at some point is think about it and be like, on this bare, plot of sand that's technically worth nothing right now as is.
It's still worth nothing.
110 acres of land, sand everywhere. They're like, well, maybe Sharia law is not the best for business. We got to think about better set of laws for business. We're talking only about business, not family law, not anything else but business. And they decided there's got to be something better. And so they looked around, and that's actually when, to take one of the terms you used earlier, they're starting to realize, common law is actually a better way for business.
Yes. Dubai is more permissive of infidel degeneracy because they want to attract foreign investors and like Westerners coming in to have fun with their wacky tourist attraction bullshit. Yes.
Specifically, British common law. So at that point, and I'm oversimplifying here because otherwise we can totally geek out on it. Remember, this is like one of my latest things that I've been...
Yeah, Dubai uses Sharia law for the Muslims in it. Don't they have a dual court system in Dubai? Like, if you're an American going over there, obviously you can drink. You're not going to be arrested over there. But if you're a Muslim in Dubai, like, you know, they'll, if you're one of the Emirati. But the Emirati are a tiny minority, right? Most of the people there are, like, South Asian. Islam is the official state religion of the UAE. Due to the large expatriate communities of Hindus, Christians, Buddhists, Sikhs, and others, non-Muslims can build their own houses of worship. Shia minority is free to worship. Okay, yeah, so they have, yeah, okay, yeah, so they have, yeah, all right.
Been involved in, but latest, it's been the past 10 years, and I'm going to share with you a win. So Dubai is like, we have to adopt British, common law, primarily British common law. We're going to hire retired British common law judges to come and educate the law here, train our own people, and that, along with many other reforms, to also become a top center when it comes to the and in the free market when it comes to the finances. Dubai.
You know, that British common law system. So it's very, very interesting theologically and metaphysically. So it's predicated on the idea that people have. Every individual has all the rights that there are, except for those that are specifically regulated and limited by legal necessity. And then generally that realm of necessity has emerged only as a consequence of disputes between people. So you're free to do whatever you want unless you have a dispute with someone else. Then the dispute is adjudicated according essentially to...
What? He's just talking about the way things work. What? I think it's very interesting how people can do stuff, but if other people disagree with them, that's when we have rules to keep everyone from doing stuff others disagree with. Why does he talk like this? Why is he like that? Yeah, obviously, yes, of course. Yes, we set up systems that are permissive when there are no disagreements, but less permissive when there are. That's how everything works.
Constitutional and theological principles, and then a precedent is established, and then the whole body of law built up that body of precedents.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's bottom up.
She's just waiting to, like, get back to her think tank, like, spiel that she's, like, recited to government leaders multiple times. You know, she's like, okay, yeah, all right. Thanks for letting me be on your YouTube channel. Shut the fuck up.
Top down.
It's totally
and
that.
English common law is a gift from God, man.
No,
it's something else.
Absolutely. And that's the key word there when you said bottom up. So common law is so much better for bottom up approaches.
White man's
and we all
burden.
know that markets work better in a bottom up approach. And also, when they have to educate the law and resolve a dispute, they're going to be much more respectful to the contract that was passed between the two parties than, say, civil law would be. Right? And so anyway, so from this standpoint here, you have Dubai who's now trying to put all of this together, and eventually they put a set of laws together that would now be conducive to being a top international financial center in the world. And voila, in less than a generation, in less than 25 years, Dubai completely unrecognizable.
So, God, this is so stupid. Oh my God. They wanted to make Dubai a tourist center for the ultra-wealthy, and they did, and obviously to get the ultra-wealthy there, they had to promise the American businessmen that they wouldn't execute them for drinking alcohol or whatever. Like, yeah, okay. None of this, so obviously she's like a think tank ghoul, and she's aligned with the right, and she doesn't give a shit about people who've been colonized or anything. She doesn't give a shit about the poor. It's all about big corporations. Her org's got money from Exxon, from the Koch brothers, you know, whatever. We know that. Okay, fine. But, like, again, no real advice exists here, you know? She's basically just like the right wing of the IMF. Like, the IMF is really fucking bad, and the neoliberal reforms that it pushes on countries are often, like, pretty detrimental to its internal development. And she's somehow worse than that. It's like the people who think that the IMF is, like, too moderate in over these countries. God, imagine citing Dubai as a positive example in the context of wanting to enrich impoverished African nations. It's preying on uneducated people who don't know about the UAE. Yeah. Don't act like you don't want your own sinking island, Dubai. Guys, Dubai looks like shit. This is why people make fun of the wealthy for having bad taste. Dubai looks like ass. Imagine being a billionaire and having the penthouse and looking down and seeing the poop truck brigade